Hello, it's Darcy from Snails and Fairy Dust. Today I want to show you how to make these fun bracelets. It's an easy project, a great way to fill your shop up for the holidays. And I have a funny story. I went with my family to Greece this summer, and my daughters were begging me for these really cheap bracelets that were all over the place in Athens. And I finally gave in. Both bracelets broke within the week, which I knew they would. And I was just so annoyed because I was like, do you know who your mother is? Like, I can make you a bracelet whenever you want. So I've made these. The blue one's already been claimed by my teenager, and so I think they're a hit. So for this project, I am using size 11 Miyuki Delicate beads. For the one I'm showing you, there's 3 colors I'm using. And then for the accent beads, I have these size 15 round Miyukis. Additionally, I have a size 12 beading needle. I have 6-pound weight fire line, and I have a lobster claw clasp. And this is probably like 9 millimeter, I'd say. And I have these little jump rings, which are open. They are 6 millimeter jump rings, and they're in 21 gauge weight. You don't want anything bigger than that. So a lower number would be bigger. You could use a smaller number, but you don't want anything too thick because it has to fit through your Miyuki Delicate bead. You saw pliers I have there, and now I'm ready to get started. I'm going to cut quite a bit of fire line. So I've done my whole length of my outstretched arms plus a little bit more. So I would say 5.5, almost 6 feet of thread because it's so delicate. You don't want to have to add a new thread in. So just start out with plenty of thread, and then you don't have to worry about starting a new thread. Okay, so I take my fire line. I always run it between my nails before I thread the needle. That helps you to get it through the needle more easily. Some people also will like press it with pliers, but my fingernails are always there, easy. So I've thread that. I'm going to pull it down about halfway just to get the thread out of my way because I'm using so much. And then I'm going to pick up 2 beads. Yeah, so that was 3. I meant 2. So 2 beads, and then we're going to slide them down to our tail. We want to leave a decent sized tail to weave back in later, at least 4 inches. I have more like 5 here. And then I'm just going to sort of wrap that around my finger, pick up another bead, which will be the 3rd bead, and then I'm going to bring my needle through that first bead, like so. You may recognize that this is peyote stitch. It is peyote stitch. It's just a two bead peyote stitch, 2 bead even count peyote stitch. Super easy. If you have experience with peyote stitch, this will be easy. If you're new, it's still easy. So we're picking up another bead, and we're going to go through the bead that we just added. So like so, we're going to pull that through. And now we have something that looks like this. Easy peasy. And then we pick up, now I'm going to go to my next color, pick up 1 bead, and then I'm going to go back in the opposite direction through that newest bead I've just added. Pull that through. And then I pick up another bead of that same color and come back in the opposite direction through the most recent bead, like that. And give it a good tug. And I like to hold the beads in my fingers when I'm pulling. That keeps everything nice and tight. So now I'm picking up another one of that second color. And I'm going back through the last bead I've just added. There we go. And then I'm going to pick up another one of that color. So the pattern I have here, it's going to be 4 of each color. So I'm bringing that new bead back through the last bead, give it a good tug, and this is what we have. So I'm adding 4 of each color, and then I repeat the pattern. And so it's good to keep your beads in order if you are doing a pattern like this, because I did mess up a few times and sort of put the wrong color and messed up my pattern and had to backtrack because I just forgot. But if you know which way you want your colors, set them up that way, and it'll just make your life easier. And you won't make the mistakes I did. You can learn from my mistakes, see? So we keep picking up beads, adding 4 at a time. And you just want to make sure that you are keeping your beads tight here. You don't want gaps in between because we're going to add that little fringe on the side, the decorative sort of scallop on the side, I guess I would call it. And so we need those edges of the beads to be strong. So this is very simple. We're going to keep doing this until we get a bracelet length. Oopsie, I've added too many beads there, it seems. Yep, definitely did. I want you to see when I make mistakes. And so I'm just going to go straight back through that last bead and then straight through the bead I don't want. Pull it through, drop that bead, and now we carry on. These things happen. The thing is, if you're going to backtrack through, don't try to backtrack through your beads if you've gone through with thread more than once, because then you're likely to get stuck on the thread inside. And you just want to make sure your needle never goes through the thread, sort of splits the thread, because that will mess everything up. Although I will say with Fireline, that's pretty difficult thing to do. If you're using a different kind of like nylon thread, then it is very easy to split the thread. But I've never really had that problem with Fireline. Fireline is like my dream beading thread. I don't know what I did before Fireline. I know what I did. I had knots all the time. I had to use tons of wax. It was a nightmare. Things broke. Oof, Fireline's great. So I don't want to think back to the days when I didn't use Fireline. If you are new to beading, I mean, maybe you can't afford the best beads to start with. I know Miyuki Delicas are a more expensive bead, but you want to get the best beads you could get. But even more important than that, I think, is the needle and thread, because you can get really frustrated very quickly with bead weaving if you don't have the right thread and you don't have the right needles, because you get knots or the needles don't fit through properly. So it's very important. Also, if you hear some weird like booming in the back of my video, there is a massive thunderstorm here in East Sussex right now, which I can't get rid of. So sorry. So I'm going to continue beading here. The length of this is actually 76 sets of 2 beads. And that is the length I came up with for the bracelet I'm making. But you could always add more or less. The important thing is you want an even number of beads. So here I'm showing you here. The one I have is about 15 centimeters long, the beadwork. And that works well for me. But you could always add sort of adjustable extra rings so you could adjust the bracelet. But I think this is a decent size to start with. And then you could add like 5 chains to, I don't know, 5 little links for people for different sizes. But maybe you want something slightly bigger too. But this is what I came up with. And you just want it to be even, because otherwise these little scalloped edges don't end up exactly where you want them. So an even number of beads. Mine is 76 sets of 2 beads. So that's what I've come up with. And here I am towards the end, because I didn't want you to have to sit through me beading all of those beads. That would have been really boring. So almost finished now. And then when we get to the end, we're going to add a little loop. Oh, see how that's loose there? Just pull that last bead. That will tighten everything up for you. Don't let those gaps happen. Beaders, don't let gaps happen. So I'm just going to finish up here. I'm in a very silly mood today, I think because I'm stuck inside on a rainy day and I really need to go for a walk, but I just can't brave it. Okay, so here we are. And now we're going to move on to these little accent beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my round beads, size 15 round beads, 1 of the last color I was just using, and then 2 more of those round beads again. So we have something that looks like this. And then we're going to pick our beadwork back up, and we're going to come across and go a loop back through. So we're making a loop through the opposite bead, back through the bead we were just exiting. And when we pull it tight, we have this little loop at the top. And then I want to reinforce this loop. So I'm going to go back through all of those beads again. So I've gone through those 3. And then I'm going to go through the next 2. And now I'm going to go back across through those 2 beads. Don't be afraid to sort of turn your beadwork so it works better for you. I think people get stuck and they think they can't do that. But turn your beadwork so it's in the right position for you. So now I'm exiting that side bead from where I started. And I'm going to now add 3 of the little round beads. Putting them over here so they're on the same side as where my hand is. And so you can see. So I picked up 3 beads and I'm going to come right down through that neighbor bead and just the 1 bead. So coming through that bead, straight down, and then we have those 3 little beads sitting there. And then I'm going to come up through the next bead. And add 3 more of the little round beads. And then come down through the next bead. Oops, that's the wrong one. That's the one we want. Sometimes it's hard to see my beadwork while also getting a good shot for you. I'm trying to look at both things and it gets tricky, people, but I do my best. Okay, so now we're going to come back up through the next bead and add 3 more. And we're just going to do this till we get to the end of the bracelet. And then we're going to add another loop, come around the other side. Easy peasy, very peaceful, easy beading project. But if you are someone who sells your beadwork, this will be a great project for you to stock up your shop for the winter holidays, because the kids are going crazy for bracelets right now, as my kids can tell you. My daughter usually wears a stack of like 5 or 6 bracelets. And luckily, I could say like, I think 5 of them I've made, because the other ones the €2 ones she bought in Europe broke. So, but mine have lasted and are much cuter in my opinion. So make the bracelets, the kids will buy them, get the parents to buy them for the kids. I mean, or what's even better is you can make this with your kids. And if you are a teenager watching this, you could totally do this. This is an easy project. This is a very easy gateway into the world of beading. And you could just make tons of these. I like to make a lot of bracelets for my PTA at school when they're having they do these little craft tables. And so I made a bunch for the summer fair to sell there, that sort of thing. Okay, so you get the picture here. Keep weaving down. I won't keep rambling on. When you get to the end of the bracelet, meet me back here, and then we're going to add another loop. So I will see you in a second. Okay, so here we are. I'm almost done with adding the small beads on that side of the bracelet. And when we get to the end, we are going to do exactly what we did on the other end. So here are my last 3 I'm adding now. 1, 2, 3. And when I come through this time, I'm going to go through both of those beads. So taking my needle all the way to the opposite side. And then I'm going to pick up, I'm going to get rid of this little tail because you don't want that to get in your way. So I'm just going to sort of wrap that tail around my finger, pull it the other way so it's out of the way. We'll weave it in at the end. And I'm going to pick up 2 of the small beads, 1 of the bigger one, and 2 of the small ones. And then I'm going to come around, bring our needle through both beads again, like so. And then we will just reinforce that by going through all of those beads again. And then after that, we bring our needle back through those two beads so we could add the little scalloped edge onto the opposite side. There we go. Now we're just going to start picking up 3 beads at a time and do the same exact thing on this side of the bracelet. Let me just show you the first one so you can see. 1, 2, 3. Come down through that next bead. Oh, the other tip I want to give you here is when you are sort of going around the edges like this. So I'll show you just in this place right here. So when I'm going into the second bead, it's important that you pull tightly so that thread gets hidden in between those beads. If you don't pull tight enough there, that thread is going to show. So just make sure you're pulling that tightly. Here I am at the end now. You didn't need to see me do that whole edge. And I'm just adding my last 3 beads. And I'm going to come all the way through there. And then now we just have to get rid of all of these tails. So I'm going to weave this in. And what I'm going to do is make a couple of knots and then weave in the thread. So I'm just going back and forth down the bracelet. Just make sure you're pulling that thread all the way so it hides in between the beads. And somewhere here, I'm going to make a knot. Let's see. Am I coming up to it yet? Sorry for that camera work. As I said, it gets tricky sometimes to see what I'm doing and give you a really close shot. That one is giving me a hard time, which happens sometimes. Just take your time. Don't break your beads. That is the worst thing, is to break a bead. It's heartbreaking because there's nothing you could do about it except start over. Don't know why this one is giving me a hard time. I think it was the angle. So I'm just weaving through there. Here I'm going to make a knot. So I'm going to use that outside edge. I'm coming underneath the thread there and then just back through that little loop to make a knot. So pull that slowly so it doesn't get stuck on a bead and pull that tightly. And then just continue weaving in. I'm probably going to do this 2 or 3 times, the knot part, just to make sure it's super secure. And I'm going to weave in pretty far. I like to just make sure things are really secure. And I think the further you go, as long as the thread's not showing, like, why not? Just make it stronger. That's what I say. And I have all this thread, so I might as well try to use some of it. Also, when you have these like leftover longer pieces of thread, save them. Don't throw them out. Because there's always like that little bit of a project where you need just a bit of thread. And I have a little jar where I save all of those little pieces of thread. No point in being wasteful, right? So just keep doing that. And then when you're done with that, you're going to go to the other end of your bracelet and put a needle on that other tail where you started, and then weave that one in as well, and also make a couple of knots. And then meet me back here, and we will add the hardware. All right, so I'll see you in a second. Okay, so here we are. I'm just finishing up. I'm going to clip this, and then we can go and add our jump rings to the end. So here we are, looking very cute. For me, what I do before I put the jump ring in is just stick a needle through this bead and sort of pull it up. Pull it up. You could even hold it up there with your nail, but you just want to make sure you have that space nice and clear to slip your jump ring through. Now, with the jump rings, as I said before, this is 21 gauge. The higher the number, the thinner the metal. The lower the number, the thicker the metal. That is what you need to remember. And I'm just going to I open that jump ring and I just slide it through that end Miyuki bead. So if you wanted a thinner jump ring that slides through even more easily, then that would be a 22 gauge rather than a 21 gauge. I don't think you want anything really thinner than that because then it's just going to come apart easily. And basically, if you pull on it, it will come apart. So it's nice to have something as thick as you can have it. Also to be said, be gentle when you're putting this jump ring through your glass bead because you can break them. If you just like shove it through, it will break. It's glass. So be gentle. Don't shove it through. Don't force it through. Just like gently glide it through because if you break that bead, I don't know what to tell you. Like you're going to have to start over because you don't want to break that bead. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing on the other end. I'm going to open my jump ring. And I'm going to slide it through that Miyuki delicate bead at the end there. So very gently slide it through. Don't force it through. And then I'm going to close my jump ring. I do that using 2 pliers. Actually, on this end, I'm going to add a couple extra jump rings. This is so the bracelet will be adjustable. So we use the 2 jump rings to sort of twist it back together. Sorry that went out of focus there. But you twist it back together. You don't pull it apart from side to side. You just sort of twist the bead or the jump ring to open and close it. If you pull it apart, it just ruins the integrity of the circle. I'm going to give it a little squeeze there. And you could add as many rings to the end here as you want, which will make the size of the bracelet adjustable. You could also add like a little piece of chain there to make it dangle down a bit and have it be extra adjustable. I like that look too. I just didn't have any chain when I made this. But there you have it. This is the bracelet. I think they're really cute. I think they're great in a stack, and you could stack them with all sorts of different bracelets. And I think your customers will be happy for, that you have this option. And because it's really fast to make, it's something you can make a lot of and stock your shop up, like I said, which I know is a thing to worry about at this time of year when you're just trying to fill your store, but you don't have 100 hours. So, yeah, that's what you do. This is what it looks like. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you will subscribe and come follow me on Instagram because I have an exciting new thing coming up called Bead Camp, which I can't wait to share with all of you. It's going to be sort of a membership subscription camp. Anyway, more to come on that, but stick around and thanks for being here. All right, bye.